Chapter 3. Traumatized. Even after all these years, I wonder what went on in the mind of the man called Larry Creep. How did he justify what he did? What lies did he have to tell himself to live with himself? Or did he not care? The last thing I remembered before falling asleep the night before was my mom saying that a paper route was an excellent way to learn responsibility. Even though it was just once a week, I hated the idea because I had to wake up when it was still dark. I just knew monsters were hiding outside, and the last thing I said to my dad before I went to bed was that I was scared to go out so early in the morning. "Life is hard. Get used to it," Dad snapped. I stayed in the bedroom until I heard him slam the front door on his way out. I stood motionless in the quiet that followed, listening for the little sounds you hear when alone. I peered out the window down into the gangway between our house and the neighbors next door, and there was just enough light to see the sidewalk. I felt a little better and began to dress. Stepping out on the porch, I quietly closed the door behind me. The early morning chill brushed my face and curled softly around my body. The air was the only thing moving on the street, and I was thankful. A stack of newspapers bound with steel wire, the sharp ends still twisted together, sat in the middle of the wooden porch floor. My heart sank because my father had promised to cut the wire and didn't. I untwisted the wire carefully and managed not to cut myself. My route was different from my older brother Joe's. He delivered the Chicago American and only had to deliver to subscribers' houses. I delivered Goldblatt's paper, which was just a few pages of ads. Still, a copy had to go to every address in my delivery zone, about 800 copies if you included the apartment houses on Blackstone Avenue. My newspaper bag held only about 75 copies, so I returned to the porch about 10 times for refills. A wagon would have made the job easier, but I knew not to ask for one. It was too early for the apartment buildings on Harper Avenue because I had to walk the hallways to deliver, and it was too dark. Someone or something could grab me, so I'd do Harper last when it was light outside. Dante Avenue was a good start with single-family houses like ours. I felt better heading left and throwing papers onto porches because I could run in the open. I was fast, and even the older kids couldn't catch me once I started zigzagging. I turned east on 91st Street, which only had a few houses, and ended on the railroad tracks. I came around the turn of the alley and, oh my God, someone was blocking the sidewalk. I froze. My heart raced and my breathing stuttered. The man was tall and fat, much bigger than my father. He had short, oily black hair and wore work clothes everyone called factory greens. I saw the word Larry sewn on his shirt, and I suddenly had to go to the bathroom. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move, and the man didn't move either. "What do you have? The paper?" I nodded. "What's your name?"
Jimmy,
I stuttered. "How old are you?"
11,
"What school do you go to?"
St. Albie.
"How's Miss Hope?" I relaxed. Miss Hope was my fourth-grade grammar school teacher, and I would likely have her again. If he knew her, he must be okay. "Tell Miss Hope Larry said hello."
Okay. I may see her today because she lives on Harper Avenue right behind the Castaways Motel.
"The Castaways Motel, huh? I hear a few prostitutes are working at the Castaways now. Things sure are changing in this neighborhood,"
I have to deliver the paper to the motel, too.
I said. "You look thirsty. Want a pop?"
No, thank you. There are too many papers. Goldblatt's is having a big sale.
"Junk paper. Junk store," Larry said. "Everything in that store is cheap. It's a waste of time delivering their ads."
Yeah, and it's way too early to be up.
Larry nodded again. "Well, I'll see ya," he said.
Wouldn't want to be ya.
I thought to myself. As I continued my deliveries, I began to feel thirsty. Larry was friendly to offer me a pop, even if it was so early in the morning. There was nothing fancy about the baseball field by the railroad yard and steel mill. We played on dirt, crushed coal, and weeds, and when a train rolled through, the freight cars blocked the outfield, forcing a game delay. There were better diamonds in the area, but we were proud of ours, and that pride had motivated us to get up early the previous Saturday to clean up the field and the tracks. We worked until dark, a labor of love. Today was the moment of truth. The team captains would pick their teams, and I was worried because there were more guys than positions. I was younger than some, and I was in a slump. I couldn't get on base and dropped a few easy balls, but my friend Bush was a captain. While making his picks, I kept trying to catch his eye, and now and again I succeeded. 4 kids were still waiting when it came down to the last 2 players.
I'll make plays. I promise.
My eyes pleaded. "I'll take Jimmy," Bush said. Right away, I started to take practice swings with my bat. I was anxious to redeem myself. All it would take was one good game, just a couple of hits, and then I'd earn back the guys' respect. Looking over the field, I saw white butterflies fluttering among the yellow dandelions swaying softly in the summer breeze. Across from the right field baseline on Dante Avenue was a neat row of small brick bungalows, and when we played evening games, the neighbors would sit on their porches, drinking beer and watching us play. It was live baseball and better than sitting in a stuffy house. "Quit daydreaming!" Bush yelled. "Your home run isn't going to happen.
What?
Nobody's ever hit one over the steel mill fence. It's too far. By the way, you're playing right field."
But nobody ever hits to right field.
"That's the point, and I don't have to worry about you dropping one." We took the field first, and I trotted out to my spot. Even though nobody ever hit to right field, I had to be ready. The first batter on the opposing team was Troy, a kid from the east side of Stony Island Avenue, who was always picked first because he could hit the ball. He took the first pitch, watched it go by, patted the mud off his shoes like a major leaguer, and surveyed the right field. "He's going your way, Jimmy!" Bush yelled. The second pitch came in. Troy swung late, and the ball cracked off the bat and was streaking down the first baseline. Bush screamed, "Foul!" and relaxed. Troy screamed, "Fair!" and ran toward first base. I couldn't tell which it was because it was too close to call. Troy rounded first, and Bush squared up to block him from going to second. Most of the fight started between first and second base, and I moved toward Bush in case of trouble. "Go get the ball!" Bush yelled. The ball sliced, hit the street, and rolled up Dante Avenue. When a ball got this far, it usually rolled under a parked car or onto one of the lawns, so I scanned the area looking for the baseball. When I didn't see it on the grass, I started checking under the cars parked on the street. The first time, there was nothing there. It must have rolled against a tire, and I'd have to crawl along the curb. I was crouched over, looking under the third car, when I heard a voice behind me. "Jimmy, it rolled into Mrs. McGee's bushes." I raised to my knees and looked around to see Larry, the man from the paper route, standing on the sidewalk. And from behind me, the guys were screaming, "Come on, hurry up!" Larry Creep turned slowly, walked toward the bushes, and retrieved the ball. "Here you go," he said as he held it out to me. I looked over my shoulder at the guys yelling at me. I walked closer to him and took the ball from his hand. "Now that wasn't so bad," he asked.
No,
I said. "After the game, why don't you stop by for a pop?"
I can't.
I said, and tore back to the field, ball in hand. And as I ran, I felt thirsty and thought about the pop.
Dear Mom and Dad, the paper route came around again, and Larry Creep was waiting and offered me a pop. He was on the corner every Wednesday with a soda pop, and eventually, I trusted him. Yesterday, he invited me into his house to look at his fish, and I was thirsty and wasn't afraid of him anymore. I probably still had a chance to run, but I no longer thought about it. And that's why he knew I'd come into the house. I didn't understand he was going to hurt me, and I was still free of the agony that was about to begin. Wednesday was paper day, and the big day Larry Creep had been planning. It turned out that Larry Creep was a child molester. It was what he did. A painter paints, a doctor heals, a policeman protects, and a child molester molests children. I went inside Larry's house, and what happened changed my life forever. Way to go, Jimmy.
Dear parents, so now you know my sickness. Watching, contacting, gathering information, securing trust, and I assault your children, reducing their thinking to a screeching tremor while their bodies shiver with fear. Sure, I know the consequences, because it happened to me. Once I was young and full of promise, but there was a man who was my teacher, and I'm only passing on what I learned. Besides, being my special friend means he gets treated better than at home, and I'm pretty sure he won't tell on me. His mother is having another baby, drinks, and his father works 12 hours a day in a factory. Jimmy's just another kid who needs someone to care about him, and that person will be me. I don't give a flying turd about Miss Hope's precious crucifix that she shoves in my face as if I were a vampire. She won't be able to prove a thing. None of them can. Somebody must catch a predator in the act. The child must testify in court, and the parents don't want to deal with it. Everyone decides to forget all about it and go home. Sex with a child is horrific for the child, but thrilling for me. Kids feel a combination of trauma and pleasure, which confuses them and creates addictions. They believe it's all their fault and pure evil because it forever shocks their psyche. I want Jimmy, and if I blow the twinkle out in his eyes, too bad. He might like it and return for more. I'm praying for that. And if there's a chance of me getting caught, he'll disappear and never be found. Stay distracted, Larry Creep.